There are moments I never told anyone about. Moments when I sat down on the floor of my room not because I was tired, but because something inside me quietly collapsed. No one saw it, no one heard it. And maybe you've been there too. That silent breaking where your breath feels heavier than your body. We don't fall apart dramatically, we fold inward, softly, hoping no one notices. And if you recognize yourself in that image, then this isn't just my story, it's ours. Psychologists call what we carry emotional overload, the weight that stretches the nervous system beyond what it was built for. Studies from the National Institute of Mental Health show that prolonged fear or instability rewires the brain to anticipate danger even in safe moments. That's why we, the ones who've been through too much, don't react the way others do. We stay silent. We stay still. People think we're calm, but it's really the quiet numbness our mind uses to keep us alive. And if you've ever wondered why your body tenses at small things, why you scan for tone changes, why peace feels unfamiliar, it's because your brain remembers what your heart tries to forget. Living like this gives us a strange kind of depth, a heaviness in our eyes, a softness in how we speak, a caution in how we hope. We read people too well because we had to. We feel too deeply because life trained us that way. I used to think it was just me being sensitive, being too aware, too afraid, too tired. But the more I learned, the more I realized. There's an entire world of people like us, carrying storms quietly while appearing fine on the surface. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And maybe that's true for people like us, not because we're weak, but because we've been through so much that being soft, open, or honest with ourselves feels risky. We learn to protect the parts of us that were hurt, even if deep down those parts are still hoping someone will understand. This video isn't just about the psychology of people who have been through too much. It's more like a mirror one that shows the feelings you've carried quietly for years. So if even a small part of you thought, "That sounds like me," then you're in the right place. Before anyone notices a change in us, it always starts quietly on the inside, not with tears, not with a breakdown. It starts in the tiny, almost invisible reactions we never talk about. The way our heart jumps at a sudden tone shift, the way we prepare ourselves before entering a room, the way we replay conversations long after everyone else has moved on. And if you've ever felt that, it's not because you're overthinking, it's because something in you has been trying to keep you safe for a long time. When people go through too much, the body learns to adapt earlier than the mind does. Even when we tell ourselves it's fine, our nervous system is already 2 steps ahead. It's strange how the body remembers what the heart tries to forget. A study from Harvard Medical School found that long-term emotional stress can keep the brain's alert system switched on, causing us to react to small things as if they were big threats. And honestly, that explains a lot, doesn't it? It explains why we brace ourselves for disappointment, even in gentle moments, or why we catch changes in someone's voice before they even realize they're upset. These habits show up in daily life so naturally that we don't even question them anymore. Maybe you've found yourself watching people a little too closely, picking up on their mood even before they speak. Maybe you feel a knot in your stomach when plans change, or when someone replies differently than they usually do. We don't choose these reactions. They grow inside us from years of trying to prevent pain before it arrives. It's our mind saying, "I remember what happened last time, let me protect you." And over time, that protection becomes familiar, almost comfortable. We start believing it's just how we are, the quiet one, the careful one, the one who notices everything. But deep down, we know these weren't traits we were born with. They were built slowly, silently, by everything we've had to survive. People think we're mature, intuitive, or emotionally wise, but they never see the cost behind those strengths. And the truth is, this way of living creates a strange mix inside us. We're strong in crisis, but fragile in small moments. We hold ourselves together for everyone else, but struggle to hold our own emotions without feeling overwhelmed. We're the first to notice when someone is hurting, but the last to admit when we are. Not because we want to hide, but because at some point, hiding became easier than explaining. By the time others begin to notice something has changed, the inner shift has already settled deep into our bones. The quiet replies, the soft, it's okay. The way we stay busy so we don't have to feel too much. These aren't just habits, they're survival strategies we carried for years without realizing it. And sometimes, the hardest part isn't the pain itself, it's the fact that we learn to carry it alone. But here's the part we rarely say out loud. Even in all that self-protection, there's still a part of us that wishes we didn't have to be this way. A part that wants to trust again, to breathe easier, to feel safe without scanning for danger. That little part inside us, the one that still hopes, is where real healing begins. Love hits differently for people who've been through too much. It isn't that we don't want love or don't know how to love. We feel it deeply, sometimes too deeply, but our heart approaches it with caution, like someone standing at the edge of water they've been pulled under before. And maybe you've felt this too, that mix of wanting connection but fearing the cost of being seen. It's not because we're cold, it's because love, for people like us, has always been something we had to survive, not something we could rest in. Before we let someone close, we study them quietly. Not intentionally, it's instinct. We pay attention to the small things, the tone they use when they're tired, the way they act when frustrated, the pauses in their messages, the weight in their sighs. We're not trying to overthink, we're trying to stay safe. Research from the University of Maryland shows that people with a history of emotional instability develop heightened relationship vigilance, meaning we monitor signs of potential rejection or conflict before they happen. So it's not paranoia, it's conditioning, a reflex we never meant to learn. And because of that, love becomes a series of internal negotiations. We feel a warm moment and immediately wonder how long it will last. We hear someone say, "I care about you," and a quiet voice inside asks, "For how long?" We crave reassurance, not because we're needy, but because inconsistency once felt like danger. And maybe you've noticed this in yourself, that you apologize too quickly, or forgive too easily, or silence your needs because you're afraid that asking for too much will make someone leave. But the truth is, the depth of our love isn't the problem. Our fear comes from remembering what it felt like when love was not safe, or when closeness meant chaos, or when the people we depended on were the same people who hurt us. So now we enter relationships carrying both hope and armor. We love, carefully, quietly, intentionally. We give our devotion slowly because once we love with a sincerity that most people don't understand, and losing that again feels unbearable. And then there's vulnerability, the part of love that feels the most dangerous. We don't avoid opening up because we don't want to share. We avoid it because the last time we opened the door, someone walked through it with heavy hands. So now we reveal ourselves in layers, not to manipulate, but to survive. And yes, it takes longer. Yes, people sometimes misunderstand it as distance. But if someone stays long enough, they see that behind our caution is a heart that was once asked to be strong for too long. The irony is that although we fear abandonment, we're often the ones who stay the longest. We show up, we listen, we love with detail, we remember small things, we sense when someone is hurting even when they hide it, we give stability even when we don't feel stable ourselves. People like us know what it's like to be unheld, and so we hold others softly. But maybe the hardest part is this. For love to truly heal us, we have to learn to trust again, not blindly, not recklessly, but gently. And trust doesn't start with someone else. It starts with learning to believe that we are worthy of a love that doesn't hurt, that someone can choose us without conditions. That connection doesn't always have to cost us safety. We will explore exactly that, the invisible contradictions we carry, and why they make us both stronger and more tender than we realize. There's a kind of tiredness people like us carry, not the kind that sleep can fix, but the kind that settles into our bones. It's the exhaustion that comes from being strong for too long, from holding yourself together in moments where falling apart would have been easier. And maybe you know that feeling too, the kind where you wake up already drained, where even simple things feel heavier than they should. People look at us and see someone calm, reliable, put together, but they never see how much effort it takes to appear that way. They don't see the nights we lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet a mind that never learned how to rest. This exhaustion isn't laziness or weakness. It's the consequence of surviving too much without enough space to recover. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that people with chronic emotional stress show reduced activity in the brain's rest and repair system, making it harder for the body to return to calm after difficult experiences. And honestly, doesn't that explain a lot? It explains why we feel tired even when nothing big has happened. It explains why our mind stays busy even in silence, why our body feels tense even in safety, why we never fully relax. Just loosen the grip a little. We learned early that the world wouldn't slow down for us, so we adapted by speeding ourselves up. We learned to keep moving, keep working, keep being useful, because slowing down felt dangerous. When you grow up or live through chaos, stillness doesn't feel peaceful. It feels suspicious. And maybe that's why rest feels uncomfortable for us. Because rest means lowering your guard. Rest means trusting that nothing bad will happen while you're not paying attention. And for people who have been through too much, that kind of trust doesn't come naturally. Sometimes this exhaustion shows up in ways we don't expect. We forget things easily. We detach emotionally without meaning to. We feel numb in moments where we should feel something. We become quiet in conversations because our brain is using its energy just to stay balanced. And maybe you've had days where even replying to a message felt like too much, or where you avoided people not because you didn't care, but because you didn't have the capacity to be present. These aren't flaws, they're symptoms of carrying too much for too long. And then there's the guilt of feeling tired when others expect you to be strong, the guilt of saying, "I need space," without wanting to disappoint anyone. People like us are used to showing up even when we're exhausted, used to giving even when we're empty, used to being the one others lean on. And because of that, we rarely ask ourselves a simple question: what do I need? We learned to take care of our responsibilities, but never learned how to take care of our tiredness. But here's the part that hits the deepest. Behind all that exhaustion, there's still a part of us that wants to feel alive again. A part that wants to laugh without overthinking, breathe without bracing, rest without guilt. A part that hopes one day the body will finally believe it is safe enough to let go. That small, quiet hope, that longing for ease is proof that the exhaustion hasn't taken everything from us. And maybe healing doesn't start with fixing the exhaustion. Maybe it starts with finally acknowledging it. Maybe it starts with admitting, "I'm tired." Not as a confession of defeat, but as recognition of how much we've survived. Because once we can name the weight we're carrying, we can finally start learning how to put it down. There's a version of us we don't talk about anymore. The version who trusted easily, laughed without overthinking, and believed in good things without scanning for hidden danger. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of that person in an old photo or a memory that slipped through the cracks, and it hits me harder than I expect. Not because I miss the past, but because I miss who I used to be before life taught me to brace for impact. And maybe you feel the same. Maybe you've looked at yourself and wondered, when did I change? When did I stop feeling like me? The truth is, we didn't lose ourselves in one big moment. We lost ourselves slowly, quietly, in the places where we had to choose survival instead of softness. People who have been through too much often carry a kind of invisible grief. Not grief for someone else, but grief for the parts of ourselves that didn't make it through. Psychologists call this self-loss, a concept studied by the University of British Columbia, where they found that prolonged emotional stress can disconnect people from their own preferences, desires, and identity. And when I read that research, it made sense in a way nothing else did, because that's exactly what it feels like. Living in a body that remembers pain, but can't remember the last time it felt truly safe. Maybe that's why we struggle with big choices. Not because we're indecisive, but because we're still trying to understand who we are when we're not in crisis mode. Maybe that's why we get overwhelmed by simple questions like, what do you want? Or what do you need? Because for so long, what we wanted didn't matter. We were too busy staying afloat. We learned to be adaptable, flexible, adjustable, and somewhere in that constant adjusting, we drifted away from the version of ourselves that once felt whole. But here's something we rarely admit. Even when life calms down, the body doesn't immediately trust the calm. Stillness feels unfamiliar. Happiness feels suspicious. Good moments feel temporary. It's like stepping into a room you used to live in, but no longer recognize. That's why people like us sometimes sabotage good things, hesitate in moments of joy, or pull away when someone gets too close. It's not self-destruction, it's self-protection built on outdated survival instincts. And yet, despite all this, there's a quiet courage in how we keep trying. We rebuild ourselves piece by piece, even when we don't know who we're trying to become. We try new things, even when fear whispers its old warnings. We reach for connection, even when the ghosts of the past tell us it's safer to stay alone. Healing isn't a dramatic transformation. It's the small moments, choosing rest when our mind tells us to keep going, choosing honesty when silence feels easier, choosing ourselves even when we don't feel like we're worth choosing. Maybe part of healing is accepting that we won't become who we used to be, and maybe we're not supposed to. That version of us wasn't weak, but they didn't know what we know now. They didn't have the depth, the empathy, the awareness we've gained through surviving. We didn't lose ourselves completely. We simply outgrew the version that innocence once built. So maybe the real question isn't how do I get back to who I was? Maybe it's who am I becoming now that I finally have the chance to breathe? And that question, quiet, gentle, hopeful, might just be the beginning of finding ourselves again. Healing, for people like us, has never been loud or dramatic. It doesn't arrive all at once or feel like some sudden life-changing moment. Honestly, healing is much quieter than people think. It begins in tiny shifts that are easy to overlook, like the first time we say, "I'm tired," without feeling ashamed, or the moment we finally let ourselves rest instead of pushing through exhaustion, or when we allow ourselves to admit, "That hurt me," instead of pretending we're fine. Healing doesn't mean the past disappears. It simply means we stop fighting ourselves and start treating our wounds with softness instead of pressure. The strange thing is, calmness can feel unfamiliar when you've spent years in survival mode. Sometimes peace feels more uncomfortable than chaos, because our nervous system is still trying to protect us in the only way it knows how. Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison show that people who experience long-term emotional stress often develop a persistent threat response, meaning the body keeps searching for danger even long after the danger is gone. And maybe that's why healing feels slow for people like us. Our body is still trying to unlearn a world that once hurt us. But healing doesn't mean becoming fearless or perfectly confident. It doesn't mean forgetting the past or pretending we're someone new. Real healing is learning how to live alongside our history without letting it shape every step we take. It's recognizing that our sensitivity is not a flaw. It's evidence of everything we survived. It's understanding that our caution isn't weakness. It's wisdom learned the hard way. There will be days when we feel strong and open, and days when everything feels heavy again. That's normal. Healing isn't linear. It's a slow return to ourselves. It's giving ourselves permission to change, to grow, to rest, to say no, to ask for help, to take up space again. And maybe the most healing thing of all is realizing we don't have to do everything alone anymore. We're allowed to trust people who show up consistently. We're allowed to lean gently, even if it takes time. We're allowed to believe that safety exists, that peace is possible, that we deserve a life where softness doesn't feel dangerous. So if your healing feels slow, that's okay. Slow means steady. Slow means real. Slow means you're finally becoming someone who doesn't just survive life, but gets to live it with a little more ease, a little more hope, and a little more of yourself each day. If you've seen yourself in these words, I hope you remember this. Surviving so much hasn't made you hard. It's made you human in a deeper way than most people will ever understand. Healing for people like us is slow, quiet, and real, and you don't have to do it alone. If this video made you feel a little less strange, a little less alone, feel free to stay, subscribe, or share your story below. We're healing together.